Hello and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for being with me here today. The front verge isn't at the top of my list of priorities at the moment, but I'm planning ahead, which will hopefully save us some money in the future. And this is something that I can do whilst my neck and shoulder issue is still sorting itself out. The hedge is a very mature and incredibly spiky hawthorn hedge. Having a hawthorn hedge does have its benefits, but it also has its drawbacks for us. So we've done a list of pros and cons to keep the hawthorn hedge or to replace it in the future with a more dense evergreen laurel hedging. So replacing the hawthorn hedging with the English laurel hedging came up tops, and given we've already got some unplanned planted laurel on the property, I thought we could plan ahead to save some money by taking the cuttings and growing the hedge ourselves. This is the first stage of the planning for the things that we would like to do along the front verge, which I've broken down into 3 parts. So one part is replacing the hedging, the second part is to weed the verge of all the perennial and invasive weeds like dock, creeping buttercup and the clumps of couch grass. Then I'll be replacing this with a mixture of grass seed and some perennial flowers and seasonal bulbs. We already have some patches of spring flowering bulbs, but I would like to gradually add more each autumn time. Having this area covered with grass and the flowers will ensure that it keeps it covered and hopefully looks a lot better than it currently does. It'll be easier to cut when the time comes, which will help it continue to build nutrient-dense soil to support the plants that I hope to grow here. The last part of the work that needs to be done around here is to take apart and rebuild the wall where it needs it. And this includes reinstating the end stack of the wall, which will tidy this area up nicely. We can't currently get to the hedge or the wall from the other side at the moment, with the piles of rocks and stones and soil from other works that have taken place in the garden. But it will come, all in good time. But the main thing just now is to take the cuttings of the laurel and get it growing. This laurel has got many different names, 2 of which I know as being English laurel or cherry laurel. Laurel is very easy to identify with its large, glossy, bright green leaves, although some varieties do have variegated leaves or more of a yellow tinge, but the laurel that we have is of the dark green variety. Laurel is a fast-growing evergreen that can provide a dense hedge quite quickly. Once planted, it will need some maintenance whilst it's growing to encourage the denseness of the hedge, and then it will need regular trimming and health checks to avoid any issues in the future. Please note, these leaves are poisonous and can be harmful if eaten. If you've ever crushed one of these leaves and you can smell like an almond smell, that's cyanide. So please make sure to wash your hands thoroughly after touching any of these leaves. I am cutting some long stems off because I'll be able to get quite a few cuttings from each one. I'm just making sure that there's lots of healthy leaf buds which are just starting to grow. And near the laurel hedging, I found this volunteer laurel that I've pulled up, so I'm going to give it a good soak in before potting it on. I need about 40 cuttings, so I better get on with it. I'm cutting just below a leaf node and then taking all the other leaves off apart from one or two. Now I'm cutting part of the leaves off so the plant can still photosynthesize to feed itself, but it's not using up any additional energy, keeping the entire leaf alive when I want to encourage the buds to grow and make a new plant. Then eventually this leaf will drop off. To save on space, I'm using the container that I'd already filled in the polytunnel, and then I will pot them on into their own pots once they start taking root. I'm using some organic rooting powder to try to give the cuttings the best start that I can, but not everyone uses this, and I wouldn't let it prevent me from taking cuttings if I didn't have any. As the weather gets warmer and the plants start to take root, I would be looking to pot these on, and they will go outside. And they will stay up here in the kitchen garden until we're ready to replace the hedge. But that won't be this year. I think we've got enough projects on the go, but it's good to plan ahead. I'm going to carry on with these cuttings, but thank you so much for joining me here today. Take care of yourself and others, and I'll see you in the next video.